back on February 13th, 1991, the San Francisco 49ers actually tried to change their logo. I feel like not many people know about this because it got swept underneath the rug pretty quick because so many people hated it. And this was in a time before Twitter and Instagram and social media, and still they were forced to change it because so many people hated it. Wrote letters, made calls, wrote to newspapers, everything you could do before cell phones to change their logo back to the normal San Francisco 49ers logo. So back in 91, the Niners' old owner, Eddie DeBartolo, wanted to change up the logo, and this logo dropped all San Francisco monikers, which of course, since they are the San Francisco 49ers, this was a pretty controversial move. And it doesn't help too, the new logo that they designed is pretty cheesy, even for the early 90s. Out of all the different stuff I've found online, I've seen it with a gray face mask and a red face mask, and I don't know which one would have been for sure on the field. I assume the red face mask one because that's the one they had at the press conference when they announced that the helmets were changing. Even with the helmets changing, or I should say the logo on the helmet changing, the uniforms were not going to change really at all. They were pretty much going to be the same uniforms that the 49ers wore from 1964 to 1997, with, I get, minor alterations throughout the years, but generally it was the same look and feel throughout that whole era. But man, this helmet caused so much backlash, even back in 91, that ownership felt the pressure that they had to change. And what I find funny about this whole thing is how the 49ers logo in 91 at that time had a lot of drop shadow going on, right, with the black and then the red, and a lot of people did not like that because it took away from the interlocking SF classic logo. And I get that. Not a Niners fan by any stretch of the imagination, but their uniforms are classic. Their logo is a staple of the NFL and it shouldn't go anywhere, right? But I do find funny that the drop shadow look for the 49ers logo for a week or two back in 91 kind of reflects to the uniforms that they wore from 98 to 08, with a darker red, more of a metallic gold, and all their uniforms had drop shadow numbers. So kind of makes you think that they definitely may have took some influence from that 49ers logo in 91 and put them to the uniforms from 98 to 08. And it's funny how that uniform from 98 to 08 also incorporated a decent amount of black for a 49ers uniform, because before 1998, the Niners had no black in their uniform at all. They were gold, white, and red. That's it. But from 98 to 08, they were a different gold, a different red, and they also had black integrated into their uniform. Also keep in mind too, in that era when they had black in their uniform, pretty much every team under the sun in any sports league were kind of dipping their toes into adding black into their uniform palette. But from 2009 to modern day, the Niners went back to their old original look, got rid of all the black, and they have a much more classic and clean look today. But definitely the uniforms from 98 to 08 are a bit of a time capsule for just a different era for the 49ers. But going back to kind of how I find it funny how those uniforms definitely kind of reflect what they were kind of going for in 91. Now, the uniforms weren't really changing in 91, but just the overall logo, the black integrated with the drop shadows and stuff like that. But it's kind of funny just 7 years later that they would wear a whole new uniform with black integrated in it, where just 7 years prior, people just flipped out over an ugly logo with black in it. Just kind of funny how that kind of happens, right? And that also doesn't take into account the uniforms they wore in 1994, because that was actually a 75th anniversary jersey and or uniform going back to their past, but that also had drop shadows too. So it's really funny that in 91 this wasn't a good looking logo, let's say, but just 3 years later the uniforms really kind of reflect that logo, and then 7 years later a complete rebrand, a lot of black, drop shadows, the whole 9 yards. Now, it would have been real interesting to see if the Niners would have kept this logo in some capacity, maybe not had it on their helmets when they were playing, but made hats out of it, made shirts out of it. But no, people universally hated it so much that it was scrapped within a few weeks and it never saw the light of day other than the press conference and a few leaked photos throughout the years. Other than that, never saw the field, never saw a player's head, never saw anything like that at all. Now, there's been a lot of articles written about this logo fail back in 91, but I feel like it has not been talked about too much here on YouTube, so I just want to bring it to people's attention just to give a little bit of a history lesson on the 49ers actually trying to change their logo 31 years ago and it absolutely flopping, because a lot of people think of the Niners of a team that never has changed their uniforms, which just isn't the case at all. They obviously tried 91, changing their logo, and from 98 to 08, everyone seems to forget that they wore different uniforms then. I don't. I remember that era quite well. They were also quite bad. The Seahawks beat them a lot in that era. Very fun. And I know if you're a Fairweather fan, you probably don't even notice that they actually changed. I get it. They're very similar, but there are a lot of differences comparing the eras of the 49ers. But when they went back to their classic look that they wore, say, like in the 80s, definitely a better look, a lot cleaner, and it's a timeless look, the one that they're wearing currently now. But again, it is quite funny how the 98 to 08 teams, I would say, had a decent amount of influence from that 49ers filled logo from 1991. So with all that said, what do you think of this 49ers filled logo from 1991? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Would you love to see it brought back in some capacity nowadays? Would you like to see it on a hat? Would you like to see it on a sweatshirt? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And while you're down there, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, that'd be greatly appreciated. Until next time, guys, everyone have a great day. Thanks for watching.